Welcome to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some news stories, shall we? The first story is called Hotel Compliance. A few years back, I was working for a massive corporation as representative stationed in various hotels. My company essentially contracted desks in various hotel lobbies where my team was staffed for a 9-hour shift. At some point, the hotels with whom we were affiliated decided that it was unprofessional for us to be seated at stools behind our desks during our shifts and got rid of them. This was a problem for one person on my team who had severe arthritis in their hips. He raised concerns and asked for an exception but was told that if the hotel staff wasn't permitted to sit, neither could our staff. He met with our company's human resources, whose hands were tied since they couldn't change the hotel's company policy and didn't want to lose their contracts. Our team was upset on his behalf and looked into it, only to discover our state law mandates that any position that can be done in a seated position be permitted to be done in a seated position if required by the employee. We brought this law to our human resources, but again, they couldn't force the hotel's hand. They didn't want to rock the boat and risk losing the contracted space in the hotel lobbies. So they asked our team if we'd accept a deal that permitted us to take a seated break for 15 minutes of every hour, which worked for our teammate and was accepted. I didn't have as much trouble standing for my shifts, so I didn't take advantage of this policy. One day, I was staffed at a hotel in an extremely heavy traffic area of my city. At 4:45, having not taken a break aside from my lunch and not having had a single guest to talk to in hours, I decided to leave and get a head start on traffic. The hotel complained I had left my shift early, for which my boss issued me a write-up. I reasoned that I hadn't taken a single 15-minute break in months, and the 15 minutes I took were during a time in which there had not been any work for me to do for hours. My boss responded that my shift ended at 5, and under no circumstances was I permitted to leave before then. It was considered leaving a shift without approval and not a break since I didn't return to work afterward. He docked my pay the 15 minutes I had been gone. Very well. I never left work before 5 again. But every single day, you better believe I took a 15 minutes break at 45 minutes past the hour, every hour of every shift. Apparently, my company was more okay paying me for 2 hours of break time every day than for 15 minutes at the end of a single day. The next story is called, I Should Not Tell Them. This happened 4 years ago. I worked in an accountancy office for 6 months. And at this time, we had a change in our department supervisor. The new supervisor was like a nice old man, at first, with a big heart and a lot to offer. With the given time, we discovered he was a snake, who constantly took credit for our jobs and ideas, and slandered us to our boss. In my 4th month of work, his 3rd month, our colleges started dropping out of the company like flies. No one wanted to work there anymore, and getting the complaints to the boss wouldn't help, because, since he dragged our names, we looked in the wrong. The boss's wife also worked in the office, and she was a lovely lady. Me and her got along very well. I was the lowest ranked in our department, but she always had me do stuff, cause she knew I could finish up almost anything faster than the others. Whenever she gave me a task, I would do it and notify her so she could give continuity to such tasks. One day, as I was going into her office to let her know about the latest task being finished, the supervisor asked me where was I going. I replied, I'm going to let her know the task was done. I think he had a bad feeling, thinking I was going to drag his name or something, so he said, I'm your supervisor. You respond to me, and if I see fit, I'll let her know. It clicked. I said okay. For the following days, every time I got a new task from her, I would finish and notify him. The tasks started to slow down to the point where I got 1 task per week. Then one day she came to me and said in a very serious tone, I need you to count the number of file boxes with more than 5 years we have so we can get it incinerated. This needs to be done until Friday, and you need to let me know immediately after you finish. It wasn't her normal tone of asking for tasks, so I knew something was wrong and had an idea what it was. The week goes by and I finish counting on early Friday and even organized the boxes with more than 5 years. I go to the supervisor, asked if I could go notify her, to what he replied, I told you, that's my job. Now, I know I left out the immediately part, and the deadline, but this old crow went too far for too long. Monday came and as soon as I hit the clock, I was called into the boss's office. I get there, and there is his wife, looking very upset. That broke my heart, cause I really liked her, but it had to be done. She and the boss started talking about how I've been slacking, how they couldn't count on me anymore cause I rarely would do the tasks passed on to me and stuff. The boss also gave me a bunch of tasks daily, but his were easier to see me doing since most of the time involved going to the bank. Turns out she had lost her weekend counting the boxes since my report never got to her hands. At this point, I took out my notebook, where I wrote down all the tasks asked of me, and the date and time I finished such task. They're both speechless. I've been doing everything asked of me, and they wouldn't get notified. I let them know about the supervisor's rule to not pass anything to them anymore. At this point I take an already written resignation letter, saying working there has become unbearable, which gave me the space to tell them everything that happened in the office without having them think it was biased. I left with a pretty sweet resignation deal. 2 weeks later, I spoke with one of my former coworkers and found that the supervisor was put under a magnifying glass, and they discovered a bunch of stuff he was doing wrong, and a bunch of stuff he said he was doing, but was done by someone else. He was let go immediately with no termination deal. And as a bonus, the replacement supervisor seems to be really nice. The third story is called, Not a Fair Policy. I work nights at a small chain grocery store near me. I have a full-time job during the day and head over to this retail job at night and work from 6 to 10 as a cashier. Most weeknights, it's extremely slow. I'm talking maybe 2 or 3 customers per hour after 8, and we were told that as long as there is no customers around or waiting to be cashed out, you can be on your phone. We always stay close to monitor our lanes and usually will notice anyone walking down and immediately assist them, regardless. So, a typical Wednesday night, it's about 9 and there are only a few customers walking around the store. We have 3 cashiers, 2 female, 1 male, me included, a senior cashier, female, and a customer service manager, also female, on the front, and the stocking staff, who are mostly male, throughout the store restocking the shelves. Most of the time, we don't stand behind our registers waiting for people to walk up, we kind of group up together and chat or lean up against one of the racks and do stuff on our phones. In this particular scenario, the only male front-end employee was on self-check and was meticulously using scissors to trim the edges of ripped-out coupons, while the remaining staff, all female, were either chatting or on their phones. I was reading a book on my phone. All of a sudden, one of the store managers, Ted, walks over to where most of us are congregated and asks us to come near him. That conversation goes like this: "Hey guys, we just got a complaint. A customer said that she is tired of coming in here at night and seeing all the women on their phones and screwing around while all the men do the work. She said that all the female employees ignored her when she had a question and that they should be put to work while the men get to take a break." I explained the store policy about downtime, but she apparently has only seen the female employees on their phones and claimed it's not a fair policy and should be changed to include all male employees. I was flabbergasted. What the hell is she talking about? We were told that we're allowed to have our phones out if there's no people, and nobody's come up and asked us anything. And most of the store staff aside from the front end is male. I know, but can you kinda be discreet? I begin to ask who she is, but he cuts me off. "I'm not telling you who she is, she wanted to remain anonymous." Most of us roll our eyes but nod at him. You could tell he didn't really care about what she had to say. Now, while Ted didn't tell us who this complaining customer was, there were only 2 people in the store at this time, and one was a guy. So, process of elimination. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Karen struts her way down my lane with her nose in the air and a satisfied smirk on her lips, dropping all her groceries on the belt. I give her the customer service voice and fake smile, but I keep seeing her side-eye my phone where it's sitting on the counter to my right, where the receipt printer sits. I cash her out, she snatches the receipt, and stomps out, not saying a word but making sure to shoot my other female co-workers dirty looks as she leaves. She's a repeat customer, I've seen her in there quite a few times during my shifts at night, and I recognize her as the same woman who consistently complains about only female staff, which was confirmed by every female worker I asked after this happened. Almost every woman that works on the store floor, me included, has had at least one nasty run-in with her. So I turn to my fellow employees and a grin spreads on my face. It's on. Fast forward, about a week later. Monday night. I'm working my normal shift, but this time it's me, 2 male cashiers, a female senior cashier, and a male front-end manager. All of the stockers are male that night and are in on what I've been planning and waiting to execute. I look up at around 9 and I see none other than Karen strutting into the front of the store. It's go time. The front-end manager hops on the walkie-talkie to all the stocking crew, telling them that Special K is in the store. Immediately, all of the stockers drop whatever they're doing and pull out their phones, leaning against the shelves while they play around. Even the one male employee at the deli got his phone out while his female coworker was the only one helping customers. It takes her a good 20 minutes to make her way through the store. Later I found out that she walked through almost every aisle and saw 6 out of 7 stock guys on their phones, including the deli, who all ignored her. The second she rounds the corner to come up to the front with her purchases, me and the senior female cashier both get to work, heads down and cleaning registers, neighboring ones that are open and trying not to laugh, while the 3 male employees stand in a circle on their phones. Karen walks down one of the lanes and drops her stuff, but none of my male associates pay her any attention. She clears her throat and turns to Savannah, my coworker, who is cleaning the lane next to the one she's standing at, and I can hear her clear as day. "Excuse me. Can someone ring up my items?" Savannah, in her most exaggerated customer service voice, "I'm so sorry, miss. I'm cleaning like I'm supposed to, one of the guys is on that register." She points to the group of male employees, who all look up from their phones and blink at her. Eric, the brave one of the group and who just so happens to be on that register, just smiles at her and says, "I'll be right there, we're taking a much-deserved break," and looks back down at his phone. This woman starts stammering and ranting about how this is unacceptable, that the men in this store have always been so helpful. She demands to see a manager, who also happens to be female that night and in on our plan. Nick, the customer service manager, tells her with a straight face that Emily is currently unloading one of the trucks in the back and can't leave the merchandise, but he'd be glad to provide her the customer service number if she would like to make a complaint. She accepts that and he hands her one of the business cards with the number on it. I give them a cut-off signal and the charade ends, and Eric walks over and begins cashing her out, the same bright smile on his face. Karen is grumbling under her breath about how abnormally rude the employees have been. When Eric hands her the receipt, he looks her dead in the eyes and goes for it. "Well, madam, we're just making sure that all of the men get their deserved breaks while the ladies do the work." Her face turns red and her expression drops as she quickly grabs her bags and rushes out of the store. I haven't seen her since and she never called the customer service number to complain. The last story is called Christmas Compliance. Once upon a time, I was a newlywed getting ready for my first Christmas with my in-laws. Now it's worth noting that these people are Christmas crazy. Do you know that one house on the block that's decked out in all the bling? That's them. So as a new bride, I wanted to make a good impression. I should also note that my new husband had a history of taking credit for things he'd played no part in, such as presents, or meals, or a wedding. In the lead up to Christmas, I had shopped and wrapped as if my life depended on it. Everyone had carefully selected gifts that were wrapped immaculately, with a complimenting ribbon and bow, and handmade tags. Christmas morning, I was ready. We entered the living room, and after the momentary visual adjustment required for that amount of tinsel in a confined space, everyone sat down around the tree for the gift-giving ceremony. The ceremony was a big part of the day for my in-laws. One person was selected to wear a Santa hat and distribute the gifts one by one. When it was your turn to open a gift, everybody watched you. What I didn't know then is this was a form of analysis, so it could be discussed later. A few gifts are given out, then one of the ones I'd wrapped was handed to my husband. I was terribly excited, it was something he'd wanted for ages. I couldn't wait for him to be thrilled when he opened it. But I had to. He couldn't get the ribbon off. We weren't supposed to talk during the ceremony, so we all sat there quietly while a grown man wrestled with a ribbon. After a good 10 minutes of watching him lose his mind, I quietly suggested he pulls the bow off so the ribbon would slip off the side. He did so and was mildly enthused at the gift. We moved on to the next person, and after a bit, my husband was handed another gift. My mother-in-law said, "Don't worry, I won't tell you how to open it," with a completely innocent smile on her face. I chose not to say what I was thinking. Shortly after, a gift was handed to me from my parents-in-law, with an insincere apology that it didn't have a bow. At this point, I figured I must have somehow broken ceremony etiquette by using ribbon. I made a mental note not to repeat my mistake in the future and laughed it off. First Christmas, right? There's bound to be some hiccups. Following the ceremony, it was lunchtime, which went fine. Afterward, the men retired downstairs while the women cleaned up. This wasn't unusual as they're a fairly traditional family. Except instead of helping my mother and sister-in-law with the dishes, I was sent to collect the scraps of wrapping paper from earlier and take them out to the rubbish. This was a little unusual when I'd been there for meals before I'd done dishes with them. But again, it's Christmas and they have their rules. So I collected it all up, and then went back to the kitchen to get another rubbish bag. I was in the hallway, and I overheard their conversation about how utterly terrible I was at domestic things, how I'd clearly paid to have the gifts wrapped to show off, how the things I'd picked were unsuitable, and I was so ungrateful for what they'd given me. I was steamed. Unexpectedly, my husband chimed in. If I'd have known she was going to go stupid with it, I would have helped. But I was so busy working and she swore she'd take care of it. I went from steamed to apocalyptic. He was in his third week of an 8-week holiday from work, while I was working extra shifts trying to get a promotion. I had begged him to help me choose things for his family. When we got home later and I'd calmed down a bit, I tried talking to him about it. His response was a groveling apology and an explanation that his family was a bit crazy about Christmas, and that I should just leave family gifts to him. So the following Christmas, I bought a gift for each of them. One gift. From me only. Wrapped with simple paper and minimal tape. Christmas morning comes around, and my husband is given the honor of the Santa hat. Halfway through, he starts looking around the tree frantically, obviously having realized that there was nothing from him under there. Afterward, he pulls me aside and asks what the heck. I'm sure I looked way more innocent than I felt when I answered, I left the family gifts to you. I don't have a funny story about the third Christmas, because our marriage didn't last that long. But I've just finished wrapping a pile of gifts for this Christmas, and as I curled the ribbon to make my kids' presents extra fancy, I felt very vindicated to know that tomorrow morning's chaos will have zero sense of ceremony about it. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.